Happy April Fool's Day, everybody. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. If you are new, I am Pillow, and I like to just talk about whatever. And this is something that I wanted to do about a month ago, and I'm super late doing it, but I'm doing it now because this is something that is hard to talk about. These women are prostitutes, sex workers, drug addicts, thieves. They're mentally ill, their mothers, their daughters, their sisters, their aunts, their loved ones. And they're all housed at the Edna Mann Correctional Facility for Women, where there have been serious problems of sexual, physical, and I'm sure mental abuse for a number of years, for decades, actually. And it's never been really seriously addressed. It's been reported on. Nothing's really ever been happened. A few officers have been charged and cleared of all their charges usually and just sent on their way. But recently, something changed. And what changed was someone from a hot topic group got involved. Now, when I say a hot topic group, what I'm talking about is a woman was involved who is trans. Now, I'm not trying to disparage this woman. I'm not saying it's her fault in any way. It is absolutely not her fault. I'm not putting any blame on her. It is not her fault that she happens to be part of a group that's a hot talking point for, politicians and in the media and stuff now. That's not her fault. She has nothing to do with that. It's just coincidence. It's just coincidence that she's trans. But I don't think it's a coincidence that now our governor has decided to do a little bit more about it when he was warned in the past about all this abuse. The Department of Justice and Civil Rights Division had reported on it, warned him about this abuse. In April of 2020, they filed their report, and this incident happened in January of 2021. It could have been avoided. Countless of women could have not been abused sexually, physically, mentally, if someone had listened before. But people don't want to listen because these women belong to a part of society that a lot of people have turned their backs on them. We don't see as many people fighting for, prisoners' rights because, well, a lot of people in prison deserve to be there. They're not good people. They're not good people. But prisoners' rights in jail, persons' rights are basically the same thing. And people in jail, a lot of them, have not been convicted of any crime. A lot of them are there serving, for not paying a ticket fine or any trespassing fine, trespassing in general, not paying child support, petty shoplifting, petty theft. Tons of things like that they can be in jail for, incarcerated for. And they are treated just as horribly as someone who would be a murderer. So that's just not fair. It's not right. We're all people. Other nameless victims may not have become victims because there's much more that we don't know about. I promise you that. I just want to read a few things from this report just so you get an idea. And this is just from the summary. This is like page number 3. It's the first page of the dick and balls of the whole thing. Okay, so it's right there in the very front. So it reads, in May 2018, an Edna Mann correction officer was found guilty of 5 counts of sexually abusing prisoners. According to the sentencing judge, the, quote, pervasive culture, unquote, at Edna Mann allowed this correction officer to abuse his, quote, position of authority to indulge in his own sexual stimulation. So what they're saying is that the culture there, meaning this is so common and these women are treated so horribly and so grotesquely and viewed as subhuman that this CO thought it was just totally fine to do whatever he wanted with them for his own sexual gratification, because that is the mentality that goes on in these places. This is not, make no mistake, this is not just Edna Mann. This is a lot of prisons, a lot of jails around this country. This is definitely not an isolated incident as we're going to find out, because this is talking about 2018. Oh, and also 2019, I'm sorry. July 2018, another Edna Mann CO pled guilty to 3 counts of official misconduct after he admitted to sexually abusing 3 separate prisoners. In January 2019, another CO pled guilty to official misconduct charges after admitting that he repeatedly sexually abused 2 Edna Mann prisoners over a period of several years. In sentencing him, the New Jersey court concluded that the officer had, quote, sexually assaulted a vulnerable population. Official misconduct charges most likely means that the women, I'm not going to say they consented, because the law has decided it is not consent because of the position of power they have over these inmates, that they are not able to consent no matter what happens, no matter what they say. You are not allowed to do that, basically. Just don't fucking do it. I don't know why that's so hard. So he was sentenced to that, and that's what I guess that's what he meant by he sexually assaulted a vulnerable population, because his argument was that they consented when that's not really what happened. And part of why this is something hard for me to do is because it kind of affects me personally, I guess. And this is a young YouTube channel. I don't know if I'm ready to share personal stuff with you guys, but it's something that really bothers me, especially because I know how horribly these women are treated and how they're treated as subhuman. And it's not just in a sexual way, it's in many, many ways, usually, in a mentally abusive kind of way. And no one deserves, really to be treated like that, especially in jails. A lot of people realize now that, most of these people are either accused of a crime, not yet convicted, or a lot of the time they're arrested for not paying fines, shoplifting to feed a drug addiction, drug possession, drug selling. Addiction fuels a lot of it. And I'm not saying to minimize any of it, but I am saying it because it is absolutely possible for the women and men that are locked up to turn their lives around, especially if they come out with a supportive environment. Now, if they had a supportive environment in there, it would probably be even better. Other countries with lower recidivism rates have pretty much showed us that. It also says long-standing problems with staff sexual abuse at Edna Mann have been documented for decades. Fucking decades. This is a decades-long problem that has never been addressed because before it was just degenerate women of society. They're not all, horrible fucking scum of the earth. They're not all murderers or whatever. A lot of them, are there for drug-related offenses that were non-violent. They were mostly hurting themselves. I believe one of the victims was there for something similar, a non-violent crime, which is, a common story. Despite being on notice of the sexual abuse, NJDOC, New Jersey Department of Corrections, and Edna Mann failed to take timely action to remedy the systemic problems that enabled correction officers and other staff to continue to sexually abuse Edna Mann prisoners. Women have suffered actual harm from sexual abuse and are at substantial risk of serious harm because the systems in place at Edna Mann discourage prisoners from reporting sexual abuse and allow sexual abuse to occur undetected and undeterred. Now remember, this is talking about 2018 and 2019. The report came out in 2020. It got a whole lot worse after this. Let me just say, the 32 employees that were suspended, nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with this. Only these 3 officers, COs, that are mentioned here, I believe, were the only ones. Oh, I'm sorry. There's another one that says another CO was indicted for charges related to sexual abuse of prisoners and his pending trial. So I guess 4. But that's not even close. Those are just the 4 that got caught. You're saying this is a systemic problem? As far as I'm concerned, they should A, lose their jobs, B, never be allowed to work in a position of power ever a fucking again, and C, they should go to fucking prison. If it's a systemic problem, that means a lot of people had to be involved to keep this shit going. And a lot of them have to be and are involved to keep shit like this going. It's absolutely fucking shameful that nothing was done until now. I'm sorry that any woman had to deal with any of this. I'm sorry that the transgender woman that this was supposed to be a safe haven for had to be so horribly abused by the fucking staff. And I'm glad that it did finally bring a little more something out of this. I'm so glad it did. I just wish it hadn't gotten to this point, because it is absolutely not fair to the decades and decades worth of women that had to suffer before this. It's not fucking fair to them, and all the women that are going to have to suffer after. You have 24 of them on paid fucking leave. Are you serious? And this may fucking shock you. This article was only reporting on 22 that were arrested. 11 of them were women and 11 of them were men. The 3 that came afterwards were also men, but still, almost half of them were women that were arrested. For women to do this or allow this to happen to other women is not just fucking shameful, it's fucking heinous, it's grotesque, it just disgusts me. Those women, those COs, all of them, they all fucking disgust me. There absolutely need to be real consequences for their actions. Women, not just women, men too, anyone should not be allowed to be treated like garbage because they're in prison or jail or a mental health facility, or because they're in such a vulnerable position. No one deserves to be treated that way or taken advantage of in that way because of it. Absolutely horrific. It's grotesque. It's heinous. And I wish that more people would see these people as people, because I think if that were to happen, a lot more of them would have the ability to change a lot easier. I think they'd have a lot more hope, maybe want to change, because it's really hard to when you feel like you're the scum of the earth, people say you are and treat you like. It's hard to change when you feel like, oh, I deserve this life. I did this to myself. I deserve nothing better. And when everyone around you echoes those thoughts, you're just going to be stuck in the same circle jerk forever, doomed to repeat over and over again till you die, or end up in somewhere like Edna Man, which I would probably choose death over this fucking place, in all honesty. I think I would rather die than be sentenced there, even for a year, because that's just fucking horrifying. So let's talk about the incidents that have led to these new 4 now being arrested. Because that is where I'm going to say our hero of the story, because she really, I think, is a big reason why this is being investigated further, and I'm happy for that. I really am. I'm just going to refer to her as Victim A, because there's a report that refers to Victim 1 and Victim 2, and I don't know which one of those she is. I know she's one of them. I have a suspicion she's Victim 1, but I'm just going to refer to her as Victim A, because I do not have full confirmation on which one she is. So Victim A she is. She had been shuffled from one men's prison to another, facing abuse at both, her mother said, before finally being transferred in November to the state's only lockup for women, Edna Man Correctional Facility. We thought it would be a little different, Miss Rollins said, and it was worse. In a January 11th incident that is now at the center of a wide-ranging criminal investigation, her daughter was handcuffed and beaten so badly by 4 guards that ligaments ripped in her knee, Miss Rollins said, forcing her to rely on a wheelchair to move around. It is the latest episode in what has emerged as a years-long pattern of abuse of inmates by guards at the troubled Western New Jersey prison. The Democratic leader of Assembly, Craig J. Coughlin, said, a pattern has developed at the facility, and those supervising it are not doing nearly enough to protect its vulnerable inmates. We need answers and we need reform, which I absolutely agree with. And then the president of the union that represents state COs said that he supported a full investigation due to the criminal nature of these allegations. All officers on duty in the affected housing unit on the morning of January 11th were placed on administrative leave, he said, but it was unlikely, he said, that all were directly involved in the incident, which stemmed from efforts to remove unwilling prisoners from 2 separate cells, a procedure known as a forced cell extraction. I don't give a fuck if they were directly involved or not. If they saw it happening, did nothing, and said nothing, they are fucking culpable. And that's why every fucking one of them needs to go and be fucking replaced. All the way down the fucking line. And from the top to the fucking bottom, every one of them. He said, once things start getting figured out, you're not going to see 22 officers in trouble. I know we're not going to, and that's a damn fucking shame. It really is. And then he felt the need to include this little tidbit. He said that in the weeks before the incident, officers had filed 5 or 6 reports of being sprayed by prisoners with a mix of feces and urine. Now, you'll understand, I guess, why he mentioned this when I get into the actual report, but so fucking what? So fucking what? They had it happening with inmates, right? I guarantee it wasn't the inmates that were extracted from their cells, or he would have said it was those specific ones, because he's in damage control and trying to invalidate them. Because they're already prisoners, it shouldn't be that hard. And it hasn't been, really. I mean, in the past, it never was. You can invalidate them extremely easily. That you can tell by the tactics they use that they've been doing this for a long time, and they've never had to face consequences for it before. They've never been questioned or anything before. According to Miss Rollins, who has been communicating daily with her daughter, the hero of our story basically, through a prison email system, at least 3 women were injured in that incident. 2 women were taken for treatment outside the prison, but her daughter, who was convicted of robbery and is serving a 5-year sentence, was treated by an on-site nurse with torn ligaments in her knee and a concussion. And if she's victim 1, like I'm pretty sure she is, contusions on her face. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just afraid the ones who are left are going to retaliate, Miss Rollins said about the remaining guards. I'm definitely afraid for her life. Spoiler alert, they did fucking retaliate. What a shock. After everything that had transpired, they still think they're untouchable. After everything that happened, they still think they're fucking untouchable and retaliated against one of the victims. I mean, how is that not raising so many red flags for everybody? The answer is it is. They just don't give a fuck because they know they don't have to. Our politicians don't have to give a fuck to get reelected. That's the problem, because no one's going to bat for prisoners' rights, really. It's really only the families of prisoners, because they know, maybe not most, but a lot of them are not bad people. They may have done a bad thing, but they're not necessarily bad people. Someone that stole a car because they needed money to get heroin because they were dope sick may not just be a bad person. And I may get a lot of shit for this video, but you know what? Oh well. I've been clean for almost 6 years. I used for about 6 years. I am living, breathing proof that once you cross over, basically, you can make it back to this side. And the sad thing is, most people don't. Most people I either got high with or knew of that got high are either dead, in jail, just don't know what happened to them, or they're continuing that lifestyle. They've lost custody of their kids, in and out of jail, even if they're not in jail right now. Stuff like that. Most of them do not. And the most important thing, in my opinion, from my experience, from what I've seen, is having that strong support system to help you through it is fucking vital. Extremely fucking vital. You can be clean the whole time you're in prison when it's not easily accessible, really. But by the time you get out and shit's different, that's when you're really going to be tested. That's when having that support matters. Not getting any coping skills in prison or jail, that support matters. That's why our recidivism rate is so high, because we are not rehabilitating them. We are punishing them. And for certain people, absolutely. Fucking punish them. Like Epstein, he should have been fucking punished. But someone who steals a car because they needed drug money, that's it. They didn't crash and kill anyone, just stole a car for drug money. Just help them before it's too late. I'm starting to go on a rant now. Let's get to that one report. All right, so it was basically just kind of like a summary of what happened in the article. So I'm just going to give like a quick summary of it. So this all started. Now this is why the union president, whatever the fuck, made mention of how there were numerous reports, whatever, about inmates throwing urine and feces, because this all started when the COs had seen white liquid being thrown from one of the inmates' cells. These are women again. It may have been fucking milk or conditioner or something like that. It didn't get on any COs, which is an assault charge, but it did not. It was thrown out into the hall. Yes, she did a bad thing. I am not disagreeing there. She absolutely did a bad thing. But, so they come in to do a cell extraction. Now, if you don't know, a cell extraction is SWAT for the prison. They come in, riot gear, riot shields. They basically form a human battering ram, and after they open the cell, just ram their way right through the inmate. The whole thing is to disorient them, knock them down, and handcuff them. So they come charging in. She complies. They handcuff her. She begs them not to hurt her. Literally begs them not to hurt her. What do? They handcuff her and start beating and striking her in the face. They did not give her an opportunity to comply to their demands and just decided to repeatedly strike her in the face. This victim ended up having a concussion, I believe. Sergeant Faskin, one of the more recent ones to be arrested, he was supposed to be filming the whole thing. He did not. They saw him staying there with the recorder, not recording. He claimed he recorded it in his report. Apparently no such video footage exists at all, so we know that's a lie. And he also claimed that the victim's injuries were self-inflicted, which is one of the more grotesque things I've heard in this fucking story. And being the sergeant, it was also Faskin's responsibility to step in and stop his subordinates from using this excessive use of illegal force. Basically, I forget exactly what they call it. An unauthorized use of force against an inmate. And it is against the Department of Correction policies for the sergeant to be there and to not stop his subordinates from using that unauthorized force. So victim 2 immediately had pepper spray put into their cell. They tried to comply. And then Officer Luis Garcia, another one of the more recent ones to be arrested, ran in there and punched her approximately 28 times. We will get into a more detailed version of these reports in just a minute. I'm just giving kind of like a quick summary from this one. But for the 3 of the more recent officers arrested, there were more detailed reports, and it detailed what happened here much more clearly. So I'm going to go into that as well. This is more like just a quick summary. So on February 4th, 3 COs were arrested. There was Luis Garcia, the one that punched victim 2 28 times in the face. He was assaulted for second-degree aggravated assault, second-degree official misconduct, and third-degree tampering with public records or information. Then we have Sergeant Amir Bathia, charged with 2 counts of second-degree official misconduct and 2 counts of third-degree tampering with public records or information. The third one was Sergeant Anthony J. Valvano. He was charged with second-degree official misconduct and third-degree tampering with public records or information. On February 23rd, Sergeant Faskin was arrested for his involvement in not recording and lying in his reports. And by February 24th, Miss Rollins' daughter, the first victim I mentioned, the victim for whom this prison was supposed to be a safe haven where the abuse was supposed to stop, on the 24th of February, the COs decided to retaliate. They shoved her into a wall so hard, it gave her a concussion and a contusion on her hand. Not a few weeks before, her mother was telling a reporter she was afraid for her daughter's life, that there was going to be retaliation. And these COs are so confident they're going to be protected and they're not going to get caught, that they even retaliated after what had just happened. After 32, 33 of their coworkers, one of them being the prison's top administrator, were put on leave. Lots of fucked up stuff happens in these places. The security footage is never released. Ever. Never released. This time it was. But they were still just so confident that they would be fine. Because that's what they're used to. And no one has said anything about it. No one has stopped them, and they've never had consequences. If you had the option for prisons that have reform and for more men and women to come out as productive members of society, isn't that what you would want? To have more productive members of society instead of more drug addicts and more criminals? That's what I would want. I would much rather have the dangerous people in prison and the drug addicts and the mentally ill get the help they need and not treated like a total piece of garbage, because it really ruins and fucks with your self-worth. I may cut this from the video, I don't know, but I've been to jail a few times. All right, I've never been to prison. I've done collectively 3.5 months. And one day, one of my bunkies, we were in line for our trays. Because in jail, at least the jails around here, you don't go to a cafeteria. That's like for prison. You eat in your cell. That's why the pods have tables and whatnot. So my bunkie is fucking with me and tells the CO, a young male, that I thought he was hot. And I laughed, whatever. And I just rolled my eyes. Later that day, I I don't know. I had to ask something. I don't know. And I went inside the Sally Port. If you don't know what a Sally Port is, picture this. The way the jail is set up is there's a bubble right here. And coming off of the bubble are two pods, basically. So you got a big bubble, wall down the middle, pod here, pod here. COs in the bubble can watch both pods. And the Sally Port is almost like a little room where the door is. So you have to go through two doors to get into a pod, basically. And to talk to the COs, because they can't hear you all the way up on that bubble with thick, thick fucking glass. You have to go into the Sally Port, and there's like a little, flap thing. You open, you talk to them. I don't remember what I asked, but I asked what I had to ask. Turned around to leave. And he wouldn't open the door because it's locked, And I'm like, I don't remember if I said anything, but basically, just to make a long story short, he wanted to know if it was true, if I really thought he was hot. And he was not going to let me out until I answered it. Because at first, I thought he was just joking, whatever. I didn't answer for a minute. And honestly, the reason why I didn't answer for so long is because I was absolutely terrified. I stood there for what felt like 20 minutes, but it may have been 2. I already knew he had a reputation for having relationships with inmates in exchange for, I don't know, whatever. When you're on something called withdrawal protocol, that's like your first week or 2 there, you have to go down, get your blood pressure checked, your weight checked, make sure you're basically not actually dying, and you get some nasty Gatorade to drink. So they know who's on withdrawal protocol. They know who's the most vulnerable. And I feel like that's why I was targeted in it. And from the very beginning, as soon as that door was locked, I just had the worst fucking feeling. Like I could feel my face looked a certain way. Like I feel like I looked as terrified as I felt. And maybe I did, but he did not give a fuck. He wanted his answer. I told him no. He opened the door. That was that. Nothing more came of that, obviously. But that does not change how fucking scared I was. It's not just me. He's going to find somebody else. And so now that you know a little bit about me, yes, I turned my life around about 6 years ago. Haven't looked back since. I'm glad I did it. Because there was a time where it was just, this is what I'm worth. This is it. It's not going to get better than this. So I've seen so many people slip back after so long. So I don't want that to be me. I don't want to be clean for 20 years, get high for not one time, but the second time in OD and die. Because that's what happened to my neighbor. While his girlfriend's autistic son was at our house, and I couldn't let him go back over there. I couldn't give him a hug because he was crying. He was upset. Couldn't give him a hug because he was, he did not respond well to being touched. I didn't want to make it worse. I'll never forget him, trying to get back home, and I told him no, and he said, "But that's my dad." And that was hard. So, let's get back to the good stuff. Okay, so from the report, it says that in regards to victim 2, evidence indicates that Garcia knowingly submitted a false report regarding the incident. Luis Garcia, I'm sorry. He also falsely stated the victim threw punches at him as he attempted to restrain victim 2, but the video evidence shows no punches thrown by victim 2. His filing of an official DOC report that he knew to contain false information violates the Department of Corrections rules and regulations. So, it's never been allowed. They've just been getting away with it for decades now. And this gives us a little bit more insight into victim 2's injury also. It says, according to the reports, on January 12th, 2021, at approximately 12:07 a.m., a 5-person suited team comprised of correction officers from EMCFW performed a cell extraction for victim 2, who was housed in the RHU. During the cell extraction, victim 2 was pepper sprayed seconds before the extraction team entered the cell, and victim 2 is seen standing towards the left side of her cell on video surveillance. Immediately upon entering the cell of victim 2, Garcia punches and strikes victim 2 with a closed fist approximately 28 times in the face area. Although victim 2 has her arms up, attempting to cover her face, and while standing pressed up against a wall with her back facing the officers, or attempting to protect herself. So Garcia was punching her in the back of the head 28 times. DOC policy only permits use of force that is objectively necessary and reasonable. Fucking reasonable. There's absolutely nothing reasonable about punching someone in the back of the head that many times, especially. Excessive or unreasonable force violates DOC codes. Garcia's use of force against victim 2 resulted in serious bodily injuries, including concussion and facial injuries. Now, this is why I thought, and I still think this may be Miss Frolin's daughter, the original victim, the trans woman that I had talked about, because it mentions the serious bodily injuries, which I took to mean the torn ligaments in her knee that she then needed a wheelchair to get around for. And if that really is her, that happened on January 12th. By February 24th, she was slammed into a wall and given a concussion again and a contusion on her hand for daring to speak up about the abuse she's been experiencing. Because the New York Times report did mention that her and her mother have been in constant daily communications via the email service that the prison provides. And I'm sure they read that. I'm sure they weren't happy about that. So I'm not really sure what the point of all this is. I don't know if I'm trying to get more awareness to this problem. I don't really expect a whole lot of people to be on my side with this because, like I said, these people are not really fought for by a lot of society. And now this one person's assaulted and, it changes it a little bit. Not really, I mean, it brought it to the public's eye a little bit. This time the governor did get a retired comptroller or someone to do its own investigation as well, to do another investigation as well, which he's never done before, by the way. A lot of people want the corrections commissioner, Marcus Hicks, fired because of everything that has happened under his watch for all of these years. And the Governor Phil Murphy, refuses to do it. So the Senate even passed a resolution seeking the resignation or removal of Hicks. So the Senate's trying to step in and do what's right because our governor won't. And again, that is Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey. It's just not right. Most people deserve a fair chance. Those that can be saved. Someone serving a life sentence, you don't have to rape them. You don't have to sexually abuse them. You don't have to use them for your own personal sexual gratification because you know what? That means you belong in the same fucking place. And the fact that so many of them are on paid leave, while it doesn't surprise me, it still disgusts me nonetheless. It's only recently we've been seeing footage from inside these facilities, like the man they put in a hot shower until he died, until he basically cooked from the inside. The people that get in these positions, a lot of them are heinous. They really are. And from personal experience, when I was in a facility with all women COs, or not all women, but with female correction officers for the female pod, our treatment was a lot different. We were treated like humans because in facilities with men, where men oversee us, they were always cruel. I've never experienced that kind of cruelness from a woman personally. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying. But from men, not only have I experienced it, I've seen other women experience it. And in my personal opinion, the men are much more cruel to the women than the other women are. If you see the people you're supposed to be in charge of as beneath you, you do not deserve that position. Politician, cop, CO, teacher, doctor, nurse, taxi driver, anything, engineer, I don't care. You do not deserve to have that fucking position. You should not be in that position. It's horrible these women have been put in this position, and this happens in men's prisons too. And that especially will not be talked about. And that's a shame. It really is a shame. I made this YouTube channel because I wanted a place to vent and talk about stuff that bothers me. And this is something that has really bothered me. And I'm so glad to be getting it off my chest now. Prison reform would be awesome. I would love to see it happen. I don't think it will happen, but I would love to see it. Really would. I would love to see more people like me get help. I would love to see more people in the position I was in years ago to end up where I am now. Happy, healthy, clean, sober, whatever, enjoying life. Because I will say this, if anyone's watching this that is struggling to get clean or is in the beginning of their recovery, etc., once you get into the norm, once you start your new life, it's a new life. You do not become the person you were before you were getting high. That's not going to happen. That depressed person you were before, you won't be if you get the help and support that you need. Because for me, I started a whole new life. I'm not the pillow I was before drugs. I'm pillow after getting clean. I'm nothing like the person I was before I was using, and I'm definitely nothing like the person I was while I was using. But I'm very glad about that because before I was using was miserable all the time, super unhappy. Thought I was going to live my whole life unhappy like that. Found drugs, found heroin, and it made me feel happy for the first time in my life. So now I don't feel that. Now I'm happy with my life the way it is. I'm glad I've made it here. And I would love to see so many other people get the opportunity that I had to get here. But support is a big thing. From the inside and out, they need support. A lot of their families and friends have written them off completely. Mine have. Been clean for almost 6 years. It doesn't matter. And I never stole from them or anything like that. It was nothing like that. I wasn't even really around them at the time. Doesn't matter to them. I'm a degenerate piece of shit and I always fucking will be. But that's life. I know what I am and I know what I'm not. And I can sleep at night because of that. The fact that these COs still get to, sleep soundly at night really fucking bothers me. I'd much rather they spend their nights in a brightly lit cell with the fear of whether or not their bunkie's going to stab them in their sleep. That would be nice. Or just an isolated cell with no human contact whatsoever so they can't hurt anybody else. Maybe. I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope it wasn't too heavy. I had to get this off my chest. I really did. I couldn't stop thinking about this. I couldn't stop thinking about making this video. And I had to do it. I had to talk about it. And I'm very glad I did. So yeah, that's all I got. See you next time. Hey guys, thanks for watching my video all the way through. If you made it this far, you are awesome and kudos to you. As you can see, I'm a very small channel. I do not have ads. I do not make money from this. I have a lot of ideas that I want to do. I have a lot of videos I want to make, but I don't have as much time as I would like to dedicate to this. So if you do like my videos and you do want to support me or my channel in some way, I do have my Patreon link in the description. There's different tiers, you know how it works. So if you want to, go right ahead. You'll get a little shout out in the beginning for supporting this video for the viewers. So, see ya. Have a good one, guys. I'm sorry for the shameless plug. Please don't hate me.